Welcome, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon. If you are tuning in and can hear us, we're going to get started now. If you want to just kind of introduce yourself in the chat, tell us where you're calling in from. It's always a great way to kind of get folks engaged. So today we're going to show you how we're investing and building around scam preventions. It's going to start with some great industry context and methodologies of our approach to scam prevention, and then jump into a demo of the product. About 2 weeks ago, if you happen to miss it, we had a great panel of experts kind of talking about the trends of scams. It's growing rapidly, and so people like Kit Boga and Aaron West jumped in to a discussion with our CEO Trisha to really talk about how they're seeing people tackle these things, organizations. And so if you missed that, you can click on this link or navigate to the resources tab on the right and open that to be able to listen to that at another time. The recording is available to you at any time. All right, and so a few logistics before I kick it over to Alex and Connor. If you're having any technical problems, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, there's an FAQ section that can help troubleshoot some of those. We usually see if there is an issue around sound or visuals, it's related to a VPN. So we suggest logging in from a personal device, whether that be a computer or a phone. This is being recorded. It'll be available directly after this webinar at the same link where you can log in and tune in anytime. And lastly, we'll do live Q&A. Feel free to put them in the Q&A tab on the right. You can upvote and such so that we get to your pressing questions. And if some questions come in that are relevant during the webinar, we'll try to cater to those as well, versus waiting till the end, but we will have a dedicated time at the end. And now I'm excited to pass it to Alex and Connor, some of our best fraud and AML experts out there. So Alex, take it away.
Thank you so much, Cassie, and welcome everyone to another webinar by Unit21. If you're joining us for the very first time and you're not familiar with me, my name is Alex Vevasovich. I am the head of fraud risk here at Unit21. I'm a fraud prevention practitioner for the past 17 years. I had held positions in fraud operations, analytics, building and designing fraud strategies and solutions. And today I'm working as the head of fraud here at Unit21, supporting our sales, product, marketing, and success teams. And today with me, I have my good friend. And I'll just tell you that if there was a superhero for stopping scams, he would probably be wearing the cape. Our head of solution engineering, Connor Snodgrass. Connor, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Alex. Always way too kind, as usual. Very nice to have everybody here today, and looking forward to showing you how you can use the Unit21 platform to try to prevent some scams and keep your customers safe.
All right, thank you so much, Connor. So we have a great webinar for you today. So let's jump right into it. And before we deep dive into scams, I think it's important to distinguish between scams and fraud. So by definition, while all scams can be considered a form of fraud, not all frauds are scams. And I would like you to think about scams in this way. Fraud is a broad category of things that fraudsters can do to manipulate and create like intent, get financial gain in the fraudulent activity. While scams, on the other hand, they are like more specific, and they usually involve tricking the victim into willingly handling over their money or information, and it can be through different various channels. And the reason I'm saying that is that if we historically looking at how fraud prevention teams and financial institutions were operating, and how the transaction monitoring industry were evolving in the past 2 or 3 decades, the main focus was always on third-party fraud, where the transactions that we monitoring are not conducted by the end user, by the customer. And we will touch about it as we proceed with this webinar, but it's important to remember that when we are trying to detect a scam, in many cases, the transaction or the execution of the transaction will be actually made by the actual customer, by the end user. So why is it even matters to detect scams? On a very high level, it's scams are not just inconvenience. It's a massive growing financial threat, and just in a year alone, U.S. consumers lost over $10 billion to scams, and this is a staggering 48% increase year over year. Now, it's impacting all of us. I'm sure at this point, we all know a person or maybe someone's parents or grandparents who have been impacted by this or that type of scams. But it doesn't only impact us consumers in terms of financial losses. Scams at the end of the day also create a mistrust in the system. So if I'm a victim of a scam, and I've been scammed through, let's say, 1 to 3 weeks or a very long time, once I realize and once I come with peace that, hey, everything that I've been doing for the past several weeks or months was a scam, it creates a huge mental stress, and it creates a huge distrust in the system. I will question, how my bank allowed this to happen, how my, maybe phone carrier allowed this to happen, how the social media platforms that I've been operating on and chatting with the scammer allow this to happen. So there's a very big impact on scams, not only from the financial loss perspective, but actually on our society in general. And if we look at the numbers that was shared by the FTC, you can see that 64% of banks say that scams are on the rise. 33% of credit unions report surge in scam by 50 to 100%. And fintechs report that from investigation and operation perspective, scams are the most time consuming for them to deal with. And it's not surprising. I mean, if you look at the landscape, let's say in the past 18 months, and we see how scams are evolving and how scams become more sophisticated, even with tools like Gen AI, which we all use today, to be more efficient and to save time on maybe some tasks that we're doing on a day-to-day basis, those tools are being leveraged by scammers also. And many stages of the scam today can be automated up to 80-90%. So the scammer doesn't have to do everything manually anymore. And they can create sophisticated code and have an AI agent who will interact with the target pretty much until the point where it's time to extort the money out of the target. And it doesn't have to be a one-on-one situation anymore. One scammer can operate so many AI agents and scam thousands of individuals at the same time. And those numbers that I'm seeing on the screen, I'm personally very not surprised by them. So now let's talk about something that I think is fundamental for every financial institution to start thinking about today. We have to start looking at our customers as assets. And traditionally, when we were dealing with fraud or with third-party fraud, let's say, we were always looking at our customers as victims. So we were victimizing them and saying, "Oh, it's so sad. He got defrauded. The customer lost of his funds." But it's important for us to start look at those customers as assets, because the scammers look at them as assets. And it is important for us to start training our first line operators to look at the customers and understand that the asset that's being represented, either with the value of the information that they have, with the value of the money that they hold in their savings or checkings accounts or whatever that is, we need to start teaching and training our teams in understanding like how this asset is being filled with money or being drained out of this money. And one of the things that Connor will show you today is our approach to that. Now, scams today, when we talk to financial institutions that both work with Unit21 or not working with Unit21, you can say that scam prevention in general as an internal process is very, very broken. It's usually manual. It's very reactive. It's inefficient for sure. And by the time the scam is being detected, usually the damage is already done. It's already too late. Most financial institutions operate today on receiving a call from a customer and only then starting the investigation process. So basically a customer will call in, and this could be weeks, months into the scam, and say, hey, I have some transactions on my accounts that I would like you to look at. I've been scammed. I send money to someone and they misrepresented themselves. And only then the fraud team starts to review manually. And obviously, by the time the investigation starts or even ends, usually the scammer's already moving the money out. And it's several stages where they just keep moving the money until they feel that, okay, it's safe for them to cash out. And the investigations are very long. You have to piece a lot of many pieces of information together, and you need to really understand how the scam happened. You need to understand who executed the transactions. So it's not like your traditional third-party fraud or maybe credit card fraud investigation. It's very straightforward. Scams investigation can be way more sophisticated and way more time-consuming, and this is the major failure point. I believe that if you really want to start preventing scams, or let's say early detecting scams, you have to set tools, rules, and different challenging points in your workflows to start very early detection. It's very challenging for a financial institution to prevent a scam off the bat. Because if you think about this, usually the financial institution is the very last who been exposed to the scam. A scam usually starts either on a social media platform, maybe it moves to like an encrypted chat platform. So there's a lot of different touch points that happens between the scammer and the asset or the victim until it turns into a financial thing. So usually by the time the financial institution sees the first transaction, the victim is already so deep into the scam, they are so convinced and so sold on the scam that they just keep going and going and going. And I think our goal is to be able to identify as early as we can the scam. I'm not saying first transaction or second transactions, but anywhere in the first, I think 3 or 4 transactions, that should be the goal. And say, okay, we've seen some transactions happening. We understand that this customer is an asset. This asset is being now drained of their funds. Does it or does it not fit the usual pattern of how this customer interacts with, and how he withdraws those funds? So now we have a poll question for you, and you should have all the answers on the poll tab. So what is your biggest challenge in identifying scams? So feel free to vote, and I give folks a few minutes. We have some results coming in. All right, I think we have a clear winner. So, what is your biggest challenge in identifying scam? With 34%, the leading answer is identifying risk transactions before funds move. And yeah, I absolutely agree with that because we've been trained for years to identify transactions that do not belong to the customer. So it's a true challenge to identify a transaction that being executed by the customer, but the customer is being, sold on a scam or convinced, or is just, the authorized push payment that they do by themselves. So I personally agree that this is the biggest challenge. The runner up is identifying scam actively executed by the user. Well, I think it's pretty much the same. One thing that is very challenging is that if your financial institution today leverages transactional and non-transactional events as part of your fraud prevention strategy, then you probably have different risk indicators that can potentially, let's say, um, identify account takeovers. So you will see if the customer, logs in from a suspicious IP address, so maybe there's a brand new device interacting with the account, or maybe there's no transactional events that happening on the account before an outbound activity happens. But with scams, it's not always the case. With scams, you will have, the person, logs in from their own device, they pass 2FA, all the security measures, non-transactional signals look very much straightforward, and then you have an outbound activity. Or maybe it's not even happening online. The person can just go to a branch and request to withdraw tens of thousands of dollars. We hear it in the news over and over again. So definitely, I agree with those two answers. Let's move forward. So challenges, limitations, and high-level key learnings from scam prevention and how to even approach scam prevention. So scams execution is faster than any traditional rule engine that you have. Scammers are rapidly execute using tools like AI, and it's easier for them to change their strategy. If we compare it to like traditional transaction fraud, simply because they can pretty much once they convince the victim or the asset into sending the money, they can do it in so many different ways. So I think having static rule engine is probably not the right solution or a standalone solution to prevent scams. Then we have the regulation and the regulatory pressure. It will be interesting to see at what point the regulator will start pushing more liability on the financial institutions. We see the 50-50 split in the UK for faster payments and authorized push payment already happening. I believe something very similar will happen here in the US in the next few years. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if we'll have a very specific set of rules from the regulator that will mandate financial institutions into proactively detecting and preventing scams, financial institutions will risk fines and reputational damage for failing to act. Scams are increasingly sophisticated. If we look at all the technological advancement that happened in the past years, from altering voice to deep fake images and videos, using AI algorithms to have more sophisticated, social engineering, and you combine that with many channels that allow moving money in real time, it's very hard to prevent scams off the bat. And that's why I have a more conservative approach of saying, hey, if we cannot prevent it, let's try to detect maybe the first, second, third, fourth transaction and put a stop to it there instead of having it drag for weeks and months over and over again. Institutions need proactive and not just reactive solutions. Current fraud tools on the market are good to detect scams after they occur. If you're not investing in real-time solution today, it will be very, very hard for you to catch up. And when I say real time, I say it doesn't have to, be as fast as the second the transaction happens, but you cannot use tools that, for example, alert you the day after or the next business day. You need to be way, way more proactive about using more advanced fraud tools on the market. Highs, false positive, and alert fatigue. This, for me, is more about how do we train our agents to detect scams? How do we train our agents to understand, even though the transaction and all the signals associated with the transaction look like it was made by the customer, how we can say, based on the attributes of the transaction, whether or not this is a beginning of a scam. Lack of counterparty risk analysis. Many institutions approve transactions without verifying, the recipient, and it makes money muling a much easier job for the scammers. Counterparty risk is crucial, and understanding who is the recipient, who is the account owner, can help you understand whether or not this person is actually the intended payee and this person is actually who's supposed to get the money. I will also say that solutions like consortium products, where you can see if the person who is, the recipient or the intended payee have already been associated with a scam or fraud at a different financial institution, can help you probably detect the scam much faster. And the final challenge is we still see many financial institutions who have siloed fraud and AML teams. So teams who don't operate on the same platform or not sharing information, or not, cases that may start as a fraud, then, after investigation say it's a scam, and then it's over $10,000, so you need to move it to the AML BSA team, and then they file a SAR. Sometimes those teams don't even talk to each other, and we do see that banks and credit unions who have more proactive approach to having both teams using the same solutions, not only the investigation moves much faster, but even the conversation between the fraud and AML team brings much more creative ideas on how to detect specific risks that targeting that financial institution. Let's move to another poll question for you folks. So how does your team currently handle scams? And let's give folks a few minutes to read through all the answers. All right, and the poll is closed, and I will actually start from the bottom. So 6% replied that there is no formal process, and we still working on a dedicated scam prevention strategy. And I think, this is the year to start investing. This is the year to start thinking how we can better protect our customers and end users. And I'm very pleasant to see that 52% of the respondents said that you have a hybrid approach in place. We have some prevention, but still rely on post incident reviews. I think that's a good representation of what's happening on the market today, where banks, FIs, credit unions, they start collecting some tools, some pieces together, get maybe early to mid stage signals of a scam is happening, but the reviews are still very manual, and we have agents just calling customers and asking them, "Hey, have you made this transaction?" And the customer will be like, "Yeah, that's me." And what are you going to do about this? So very interesting responses here. But I think at this point you had enough of me talking, and we will get ready for the demo that Connor will show us. So with Unit21, what can we actually offer? And we decided not to create one type of feature, but rather a suite of solutions that when you combine them together, it creates a multi-layer approach to better defend your customers. So the core of Unit21's scam prevention offering is laid in what you see on the screen right now. We have our counterparty risk, which is associated with our consortium product, where you can, block or detect accounts associated with scammers. We have our IP data enrichment, which can help you to detect high-risk login sessions from IP addresses that not correlated with your normal customer login history. We have AI agent that can be used for research and automations of checklists and help you to speed up the investigation process. We have our scams out of the box rules that allows you to deploy very fast common scenarios that are associated with scams. So this is on a very, very high level. And now you will get to see the demo of those solutions from my good friend Connor. So Connor, the stage is yours. I will stop sharing right now.
All right, thanks very much, Alex. Well, yeah, folks, let's dive right in. We've got a couple different approaches that we can walk through today, and hopefully you'll find it helpful. So for those of you that have not seen this before, or those of you that need a little refresher, this is the homepage for our detection modeling product. This is our rules engine. And a couple of things worth calling out, as we're talking about this, we do have, the ability to obviously run your models in production, but also offer two different testing modes, validating and shadow models, which allow our customers to be really, really nimble in testing and iterating different versions. Which, especially when we're thinking about scams and how quickly they evolve, I think is a really, really important part of the Unit21 platform, to allow you to evolve, hopefully almost as quickly as they do. And we also offer 3 different ways to build rules. We've got our dynamic models, which are the most flexible, our scenario models, which are the most structured and really easy to use. And then we have our real-time rules, which, as the name might suggest, are executed in real time. So these are going to get you the closest to being able to block that first transaction involved in a scam. So before I dive into a specific example, one other thing that I wanted to call out is that we do have some new template scam rules in the dynamic model builder. We're going to be continuing to roll these out as we find use cases that are really effective across the customer base. But we've got a few of them here, looking for spending pattern anomalies, looking for keywords indicating potential romance scam, or cash outs that are happening across devices, things like that. And if we take a look at what one of these might look like, I use the cross device cash out as an example here, where we might be looking for a situation where we're just seeing like a very unusual number of logins, where we might be seeing logins from multiple IPs over a shorter period of time. And at some point there is a withdrawal or a transfer that might indicate this account's been compromised. And then one other component that we can layer into this that Alex has mentioned is our IP enrichment. So we can also incorporate an extra condition where we say, I really only care about this potentially if one of those IPs that was used for a login was associated with bots or a proxy server or the Tor browser. But a lot of different options. We find this type of rule to be really, really effective at helping to identify, especially like phishing scams or scams where people are receiving a text message, an urgent text message telling them that they need to like log into their account, or there's like a customer support scam involved where their account credentials are getting compromised and they're losing money. And for a lot of folks that we talk to today, they're still in a place where you might not detect this until a large volume of money has gone out the door. You might not even know about the scam happening until the customer calls in and reports unusual transactions. And we find that being able to run rules like this on a regular cadence, maybe every 30 minutes, every hour, helps folks to, even though it might not stop the first transaction, it can help you identify these scenarios way earlier than what some folks are doing today. And we're obviously working towards getting these as close to real time as we possibly can, and more on that later. So another example that we might look at for a scenario rule, so obviously this is going to look a little bit different, is leveraging our consortium, which Alex also mentioned. And in this particular situation, what we're looking to do is try and identify outgoing ACH transactions where the recipient is flagged in the consortium. And we can specify specific types of suspicious activity that they've been flagged for. And so if we really only cared about ACH fraud, we can do that. Or we can leave this alone and have it be flagged for any type of suspicious activity over a configurable period of time. And then, as we can do with every type of rule, there's also some conditions. So if we want to specify an amount threshold or something like that, where we don't want to be alerted unless this is over $500, always have that ability. But this is a really great one to just get the benefit of the consortium, to start to proactively identify funds that may be going out to suspicious counterparties. Now, another one, and here's where we're getting more into real time, is our romance scams keywords. And this is something that we have a romance scams keywords match list, but also just highlighting the match list capability that you can screen transactions against something like this. You can also edit or add to our existing match list. So if you have different preferences on what keywords, things like that, you want to screen for, completely up to you. But we can create a rule like this and screen your transactions in real time to see if there is mention in the transaction memo of romance scams keywords that you might think are suspicious. Now, one last example that I wanted to share. This one's actually a little bit personal. Fortunately, I was able to spot this before I lost money, but back in the day, that there's a very common scam for subleases. And when I was a student and was trying to sublease a room that I was staying in, very nearly got taken advantage of with a check for the security deposit that was much greater than what I was expecting to receive. And the typical scam, many of you have probably heard this one before, involves depositing the check and using cash to pay for, furniture delivery or something like that. And obviously, you lose the cash and then the check bounces and you're out the funds. And I just like to use this one to highlight how easy it is to create really, really specific rules that look for those patterns of activity. Where, in this case, you're looking for, maybe somebody who's in that, college age range, likely to be, subleasing an apartment. And then we're looking for somebody who, deposits a check, and then withdraws a significant, balance of that check as cash, within a short period of time, so that your team can, get on the phone with them, figure out what they intend to use that cash for, and make sure that they're not gonna fall victim to that check bouncing and leaving them hung out to dry. All right. And one last thing that we wanted to cover that is really exciting, kind of on the back end of detection, is the AI agent. So once you've got all of these awesome rules set up, generating alerts, the new Unit21 AI agent can help your investigations team, by acting as essentially an extra pair of hands, to do research. So what you can do is set up a configurable investigation checklist, that your analysts are supposed to go through as they're investigating these incidents. And the AI analyst can help by collecting data for them, going out looking at public available sources, doing analysis of historical transaction patterns to help you just like really get through these as quickly as possible and identify suspicious activity, so that once you have identified there's something going on, you can analyze and react as quickly as possible. And this is the space, obviously, that is, very, very exciting for a lot of people. That's relatively new, that we're iterating on all the time. So I would expect to see greater and greater things out of this product as time goes on. All right. I'll pass things back to you, Alex, and I imagine we'll probably have some questions in the chat, from folks that are curious.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for this demo. Always very insightful. So now, folks, we will move to the Q&A part of this webinar. So please feel free to use the Q&A button at the Q&A tab at the right side of your screen and submit your questions. And Connor and I will do our absolutely best to answer those. So let me take the first one. So can you set up rules queries which can show accounts which have triggered their conditions in the past, or only future potential triggers can be shown? Thank you, Nikolai. That's a great question. In general, our rule engine can use historical data, and the more historical data you have, I would say probably it's better, because you can be more sophisticated and more flexible with the way you generate alerts. So that definitely is something that you can leverage.
Yeah, just to add to that, when you deploy a rule as a live model, you can backdate the start date. So if you want to trigger historical alerts for behavior that has already occurred, absolutely possible to do that. All right. Cassie, we're gonna ignore your question for now. I'm sorry, you work here, and go to Julius. Could you please elaborate on the consortium model, and how that operates on the back end? Another great question. The Unit21 consortium uses a proprietary hashing algorithm to anonymously share data signals between members. So what ends up happening is that everybody, as they're reviewing incidents in Unit21 or outside of our platform, and they flag accounts for suspicious activity, those go into the consortium, and then we match based on PII. So it could be things like IP addresses or emails or phone numbers. And what you will receive back is essentially an anonymized data signal that somebody sharing the identifiers of your user has been flagged by a member of the consortium, but you won't necessarily get all of the details of which member and exactly what happened. You'll just get, they were flagged. They were maybe flagged by, a credit union, or they were flagged by a neobank for this type of suspicious activity and a particular amount of in currency terms that they were flagged for.
Yeah, and I will also add that our consortium product is unique by the fact that it have members who are banks, credit unions, and fintechs, versus other consortium products on the market who are restricted only to banks, or maybe they operating on a more retail space. I think the combination of banks, fintechs, and credit unions gives a unique perspective on also how you detect fraudsters. Because at the end of the day, if you think about this, if I'm a fraudster, I will just keep jumping from one financial institution to another. I don't restrict myself to banks. I will actually be more happy to conduct my fraudulent activities on a fintech platform, but also can join a credit union. So it gives a unique perspective. And the model is a give to get model. So it's not a pay to play. Essentially, the product is a free product, but you need to share your data in order to get a glimpse into what's happening in the consortium, just like Connor explained. But yeah, let's move forward. Okay, so Michelle,
We've got
what you did there. But maybe a quick answer to Michelle's question, which pretty much which data points outside of transactions can be crucial. I think Connor touched that during his demo, when he explained about different keywords that you can use, and understanding that if we have let's say an elderly customer who suddenly start sending outbound transactions, and they have some keywords that matching something like a Roman scam, this is a great way for us to identify a scam. Also, try to look at different velocities of non-transactional activity. So for example, if someone tries to log into their bank account 5, 6, 10 times a day, and it's not their usual behavior, this could be an indicator that someone keep back and forth with their account. Why the reason this is happening?
Or if we see something like for account takeovers, especially if you see patterns where someone is coming in and they log in, they change the password, they disable MFA, or they change the email address and the phone number, and then there's a big transaction that's pretty pretty big giveaway that you have somebody who's trying to lock out the legitimate account holder and then move funds. We also see some stuff where you'll often see like escalating transactions. So you'll see a few like small test transactions to see if they can move funds, and then a big one. And so trying to identify it earlier and catch it with those small ones before you have large money movement can be incredibly helpful as well.
All right, so the next question is from Chris. Will the scam rules you shared be available in as a real-time rules that can stop payments, or only as retrospective alerts?
So as of today, our real-time monitoring product is looking at individual transactions. So that romance scam, romance keywords rule that I showed is a real-time rule. We are working on adding velocity rules, sequence rules, and things like that to real-time monitoring. So over the course of the next couple of quarters, a lot of this will become available in real time.
And it's important to note that our real-time solution is fully based on the cloud. So we don't actually require to implement the solution on premises, which is the more standard and maybe like historical way to do that. And it obviously comes with some challenges on, being able to execute very fast to actually stop a transaction as it happens. But our solution is fully cloud-based. The next question we have is from Caitlin. So can the system check names, addresses, date of birth, social security from credit application against external databases like WordCheck, Google Search, or can it call out services such as Equifax, who provides services like that? We do have some solutions built into Unit21 around screening and adverse media, not necessarily the ones that you mentioned in your question, but also you can start thinking about using the AI agent as your research assistant, and you can have the AI agent to conduct some of those researches for you. Connor, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think a good way to think about it is Unit21 can ingest data from any of these sources, and we can also incorporate it into our customer risk rating product. So one of the things that we find really effective with a lot of our customers is incorporating all of the KYC, KYB information that you collect, using it to risk rate customers. And then you can actually use the risk ratings when you write rules. So you can create much more sensitive rule triggers for high risk customers without overwhelming your team with false positive alerts, because your lower risk customers, folks that have been good, well-behaving customers for a very long time, can have, slightly different thresholds.
Thank you, Connor. And let's move to the chat. I see we have a couple questions in the chat. So Anna is asking, does this product also apply to anti-money laundering? Yes, definitely. Unit21 is a risk and compliance infrastructure, and the core of our product is anti-money laundering tools, which directly connected to our rule engine, so you can deploy all your monitoring needs, but also our case management solution, where you can go and conduct the full investigation of the money laundering, and build the narrative, and if there is a need to actually go and file a SAR with the regulator directly. So yeah, Unity1 can and being used by financial institutions to fight money laundering. And Amir is asking, do you have suggested rules for detecting possible human trafficking and exploitations? This is part of the AML solution that we have in place, and we have out-of-the-box rules that can replicate scenarios where we see money movements that can be associated with human trafficking. So absolutely, yes. Okay, we have a question from George, who asks, Swift is moving from MT to ISO. Can you monitor old and new Swift transactions? At the end of the day, Unit21 is very data agnostic. As long as you can send those transactions via API, those transactions can be monitored in Unit21. All right. So if we don't have any more questions from the audience, I would like to thank you all for joining me and Connor today. I hope it was insightful session for you. If you would like to learn more about Unit21 and what we offer, you're more than welcome to visit unit21.ai. And you can, if you want to see a demo, you can click the button on the website, and we will be more than happy to show you all different products and features that we offer today. And we will see you next time on our next webinar. So thank you so much.